Welcome back. You're still watching Night Cruise, and let's now move for another musical segment with Dr. Ahmed Hagez. اخبارك ايه؟ الحمد لله.
يا مصر انا من عشاقي دمي فدائي، يا مصر انا من عشاقي دمي فدائي، معلش يا بلدي فراقي كان على عيني يا عزوتي وكل ما حلتي بيتي وعيلتي، يا عزوتي وكل ما حلتي بيتي وعيلتي، سامحيني لو كنت زعلتي غصب عني، ده انت الرحم وانا طفلك النون والجنين. جايلك يا امي انت فين؟ انت فين؟ مشتاق ابوس حتى الشوارع والبيوت، ومنايا دوس وامشي على ارضك واموت، شايل مشاعر دافيه ليكي من سنين، شايف في قلبي حنان، حنان المصريين، حنان وحنين، حنان المصريين. ده انا اعود على ارضك نبت بس تشتت، ده انا اعود على ارضك نبت بس تشتت، هعود وهمسك وهتبت فيك يا امي، ده انا قلبي من الغربة استكفى جيت اتدفى، جايلك ووجهت الدفة ليك يا امي. ومنين ما اروح انت في بالي اسمك غالي، ومنين ما اروح انت في بالي اسمك غالي، يا دنيتي وكل امالي عز وسندي، ده انت الرحم وانا طفلك النون والجنين. جايلك يا امي انت فين؟ انت فين؟ مشتاق ابوس حتى الشوارع والبيوت، ومنايا دوس وامشي على ارضك واموت، شايل مشاعر دافيه ليكي من سنين، شايل في قلبي حنان، حنان المصريين، حنان المصريين، حنان وحنين، حنان المصريين.
الحزبي والسياسي، يعني مثلا الثلاثة أنجح ليدر. Welcome back. You're still watching Foreign Affairs. As said, the conclusion reached by European Union foreign ministers about Egypt's political situation reflect either a lack of knowledge of what is happening on the ground or deliberate European disregard. And prominent leftist politician Hamdin Sabahi announced on Saturday that he would run for presidency in this year's elections. Sabahi, who finished third in 2012 presidential race behind eventual winner Mohamed Morsi and Hosni Mubarak Arab Premier Ahmed Shafiq, announced his candidacy at an event in Cairo. And also the Tamarrud movement, the rebellion, and Al-Tayyar al-Sha'bi, Popular Current, have announced their support for Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Hamdin Sabahi respectively as candidates for the presidency. Maybe we're speaking about this and more with Dr. Ahmed Mehna. He's a political analyst. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
So part of our discussion will be definitely learning more about your framework that you kept for every aspect and for every industry in Egypt, to learn from you more about what you have done. But let's first start with the prime topic, which is the presidential race. So everybody is looking forward for the field marshal to decide whether he's going to be running for presidency or not, despite there are a lot of indications that he's going to be running for presidency. And yet there are this, conflicting messages from the candidates. Hamdin Sabahi first says he's not going to be running for presidency and nominate himself, and Abdelmenam al-Futuh the same thing, and then Abdelmenam al-Futuh moves behind, and Hamdin Sabahi puts his name on the table. How are you seeing this presidential race? Because there is a lot of arguments and controversial statements about how it looks today.
The way we could analyze this is by looking at the 2012 presidential race. We find that Morsi achieved 25% of the, or obtained 25% of the votes, Ahmed Shafiq 24%, Hamdin Sabahi 21%, and then followed by Abdel Abu Futuh by 18%. This basically means that no one president can enjoy the full majority of the Egyptians. And then part of that is also to do with the culture of how we choose our leaders. I would suggest for the next presidential election is to use what is known as the instant runoff system. The instant runoff system is, instead of allowing 20 or 12 people as it happened in 2012, basically start running a runoff survey to basically narrow down the number of people that can join the presidential race, or even shortlist them. And that's what happens in the United States. Basically, if you look at Obama and Mrs. Clinton, they run the survey first, or the instant runoff, and then Obama basically achieved the highest votes. In terms of who enters the presidential race, I don't think most of them actually are able to run the country at this stage. Despite the fact that I do not recommend or promote, I'm sure he doesn't want the foreign media to say this about Egypt, so he knows that. Secondly, he knows well that Egypt needs him more as a defense minister, and I think this is part of the hesitation. Yes, the message is out, but I think in the last minute he's going to say no.
And in the event that he decides to go for presidency, who do you think would be filling the gap of the Ministry of Defense?
I think there will be a new person coming on board. There's still a lot of people thinking about it, a lot of people preparing to join the presidential race. But I don't think any of the people that really announced joining the presidential race will succeed, such as Hamdin Sabahi or Abdel Abu Futuh. Abdel Abu Futuh is really a confusing personality to most Egyptians. We're not able really to decide whether he's a part of the Muslim Brotherhood or not, and Hamdin Sabahi, sometimes he attacks the army and sometimes he really supports the army. Recently I watched a video where he really criticized everybody that describes what happened in June 30th as a military coup.
So this is the disappointment of people, because people are looking for candidates to pick from. The revolutionaries in general are against having a military figure in presidency. So this disappointment comes that even if it's a fair presidential election, it would be needing balance of characters, like you said, that are able to lead the country, like Field Marshal Abdel Fattah Sisi. So who would be coming to this place to compete? The second question is it true that we don't really have calibers, or is it a position or a post that people are fearing, who has the capability but they fear to move towards nominating themselves?
Let's look at how we look at the presidency. Presidency in any, or the president in any political system is not the important person really. The important person is the prime minister and the cabinet. I really didn't have a problem with the army ruling Egypt as in a figure of Mubarak or anybody else, because the most important thing is the prime minister and the cabinet. I think the fault of Mubarak is appointing military officials in most top-ranked positions, and that was the mistake of Mubarak. But we need to look at, because Bush was ex-military, so it's not really a problem to have a military person. The problem at the moment is that Egypt has witnessed 3 revolutions, January 25th and June 30th, and particularly in January 25th, people don't want the army to come back to the political scene. And for Sisi to go into the presidency race, it's going to really click the memory back for the Egyptians to say, well, here's the army coming back to the political scene. We want the army to be the backbone of Egypt and remain the protector of Egypt. Yes, on the other side, who do we have to really support and follow to come and become the president of Egypt, who is able and has the charisma and the characteristics, whether professional and human characteristics, to run the country? We don't have. And therefore, unfortunately, I would go behind Marshal Sisi in supporting him in terms of the right person that leads the country. But whether he's as a military person Do I like that? No, I don't. But unfortunately, he's the only one that we can see at the moment can run the country and take it to the safe side.
Yes. If you look at the remarks, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has said that conclusion reached by European Union foreign ministers about Egypt's political situation reflect either a lack of knowledge of what's happening on the ground or deliberate European disregard. So how do you evaluate the remarks made by the EU about Egypt?
Okay, if you look at the declaration that came out of the EU 3 days ago, it basically had 2 or 3 points that support the revolution of June 30th, and the rest of it is all against the revolution, basically criticizing what happened, criticizing the army involvement in a political scene. But here I go back to what I said earlier, it's a lack of a good job done by the Foreign Affairs. The Foreign Affairs Ministry is responsible for 187 embassies, and they failed to really address the right issues and the right picture and image of the Egyptian situation here in Egypt in June 30th. And at the moment, we are allowing foreign media like Al Jazeera and CNN and BBC to attack us and attack the will of the Egyptians in June 30th. And here I find that the Foreign Affairs Ministry is responsible for that. On the other side, even if the Foreign Affairs Ministry has really done a job, a good job, still the European community don't want to admit that it was a revolution. And I think that's not a message for us or a message for the citizens of Europe. It's a message to the army generals in Europe, because particularly Turkey is quite worried, and we can see now with the corruption that's taken place in Turkey, a lot of army officials are really involved in that. So I think it was a message to the generals that don't try that because we're not going to support it. So yes, looking at, do we really have the right image overseas? No, we don't. Do we really have to worry about what the European community is saying? We don't really have to worry, and I think we have to really start having that independence in our opinion and our will to do whatever is necessary for Egypt, even if it comes to the nomination of Marshal Sisi to the presidency, whether they're going to say, you know, military coup or not. Yes, we should go with it. But I still think that we hope other people will come on board, will help Sisi to build institutions in the country and help build a new democratic Egypt without having to go back to the army.
It's good that you have these hopes because, you know, time is really ticking. We only have almost 2 months to end this, you know, period according to the declaration that was announced by the interim president Ali Mansour, which gives us a window of a month to have candidates nominate and to end the presidential elections. It's a very short period. And do you think about the perception of revolutionaries and the scene or vision of what happened 25th of January revolution? But do you think another point of hesitation or force would be the foreign affairs and how Western countries are putting pressure on Egypt on this?
Based on my analysis, I do hope that Mr. Adli Mansour will really run into the presidency race. I think he's a quite very knowledgeable person, and he runs the country from the legal point of view. Everything has to come out right. I do have some criticism to the law that came out about the presidency itself, basically requesting 25,000. Yes, it is a large number, and it doesn't allow really young people or youth to help, or doesn't help them to get the 25,000 to join the race. We don't have a parliament, so the factor of having 20 parliamentarian or even representation in a parliament for people to join, we don't have. So we're really in a very difficult situation at the moment. So if Marshal Sisi decides to go on, we'll have to support him, but we really don't have any choice at this moment. But I do hope that there will be some amendments to the presidential law or the law that governs the presidency elections to be able to allow youth to join the race and be part of the future. Because what Mubarak did during 30 years is killing all the young people and not giving any opportunities at all to them. So that's really what we're having at the moment. We don't have second or third generations that can really lead the country to the next democracy.
Hamdi Sabahi said previously that if Sisi is going to be running for presidency, he's not going to be running for presidency, and then Just a couple of days later, he decides to go for presidency. How would you describe this?
Hamdin Sabahi is a very confused person. He doesn't have a solid opinion that can really make the Egyptians trust him and follow him. And I think that's been experienced during the last 2-3 years with Hamdin Sabahi. He keeps really changing his opinion. I've listened to a lot of seminars presented by Hamdin Sabahi, and I really couldn't see a vision for a president of Egypt. Hamdin Sabahi is not really is not going to be able to run the country. He plays with whatever wins him, the ground. Yes, he said that he's not going to go into the presidency race if Sisi nominates or presents himself, yet he's changing. Abdelmenam al-Futuh is exactly doing the same thing. So neither Hamdin Sabahi nor Abu al-Futuh can actually run the country. And I think Abu al-Futuh doesn't really stand a chance because his allies and his ties with the Muslim Brotherhood is really known to all Egyptians. He's known for being a hypocrite and always change his statements and keeps playing on different sides. So unfortunately, both of them were not going to stand really a good chance.
We'll continue the serious talk, but we'll move now for a lighter topic. This is a break, and one of the most amazing and folkloric places to be visited in Aswan is its bazaar. It's where you can spend a magnificent time scrolling down a long street that sells Egyptian souvenirs and feel the atmosphere of the place. Tune in for the next feature about Aswan's Bazaar with Dina Yunus. About his book or the framework he has written. It's a huge one. It includes all of the aspects, from political aspects, industry, and everything. If you can tell us more about what you have dubbed and named as العبور الثاني, if you give us a briefing about it.
Okay. Well, العبور الثاني, or the second crossing, is a name that I decided to choose particularly for two reasons. Taking the January 25th as the revolution and the move to the second age of Egypt in terms of democracy, and particularly taking Sinai at the center of that. The second crossing as a mega plan, basically starting from redesigning the provinces based on resources, and particularly the major problem we have in Egypt at the moment, which is the population map. We've got over 80% of population lives in the delta. So for us to be able to move people out, we need a proper plan to redesign provinces and also help people move out, giving them land, providing work opportunities, and also help them to live a decent life. Thereafter, I looked at the reform of the administrative system, legal system, and a political system. And taking particularly a closer look at the political system, I noticed that, I'm sorry,
okay,
in the new constitution, they removed the word socialism.
Yes.
Now, if you're looking at Egypt, it is a socialist system, because a socialist system basically in a political science means that we prefer the rights and the needs of society over the rights and needs of the individuals. So removing socialism from the political system is a fault, and that's how and why Nasser had it really in there, because
Yes.
it means that the political system relies on community.
Yes.
In terms of the political system, I suggested that we start running using the instant runoff, having a number of candidates that are running for presidency campaign to run kind of a survey to start taking one of them. So in the end, we'll have 2 or 3 at the maximum, and this will help the new president of Egypt to enjoy the full support of people. If you look at Morsi, for example, he obtained 25% and Shafiq 24%, and then in the second round, Morsi obtained 52%, which is not a lot. So we need to change the system to look at 2-phase presidential election to allow the new president to enjoy full support of the entire population. In terms of the political party, I've studied 17 countries, looking at a number of parties and how they get involved in the political life. Looking at, for example, England, the 2 political party system in United States, 2 in Australia, 2 in New Zealand, looking at Sweden, and studied 27 large parties in the world. The best system that suits Egypt is 3 political parties. We have 2 major parties, for example, Democratic and Republican, and the third one, like the Labour Party, which basically is a specialized party that focuses on a particular group of people. We've got over 18 million workers in Egypt, so that particular party will have the support of the 18 million, and the rest of the 53 million Egyptians will be divided between the two based on their choice. The plan here was to dissolve the entire 85 political parties and take the 85 heads of parties and say, look, we're going to take 3 presidents for the new political parties, and you need to basically nominate 3. That's how
it's like enforcing a system.
It's a forcing system, and that's what you have in the United States. Exactly. Because at the moment you have in the entire Egyptian system is divided. And based on that, what you said earlier in terms of who will run into the presidency and whether he's going to be able to enjoy the full support of the Egyptians, you will never find that. Because at least, I now heard about small political parties are nominating their heads to be the next president. So my expectation is probably going to have 20, 25 people running into presidency.
Let me ask you this. You spent 3 years preparing this framework, covering every aspect. I had a quick look at your book. How is it being utilized today? Because you definitely did extensive research in every aspect in different countries, in different political systems, and even in industries and expertise.
Yeah. At the moment, these 2 projects that started to surface on board, giving people land in Sinai between 10 to 20 acres in Sinai, selling it to people. That started last 2 months. At the moment, there is a talk around the Congo River that reaches basically the Congo River to the Nile River, because at the moment the Congo River drops into the Atlantic Ocean over 1,200 billion meter of water that basically run wasted. So if we run this canal of 600 kilometers, it will lead the water to the
Sorry
Nile
to
River.
interrupt you, but our time has ended. Unfortunately, we'd like to thank you very much for joining us, and we hope we have another edition where we dig deeper into your book. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Ahmed.
Thanks.
Now let's move on to the musical cast, وتر واحد, and let's have a look at the upcoming story.